of information's in this, and I know that hot government wants to start distributing this door to door almost because they want people to understand, this is where your dollars go to, and when you don't follow the elections and you don't vote and you don't participate, this is what you get, $1 billion spent. For what? That's a good question.
Well, and anybody that's following how the election has been going recently in the presidential election, you see now about how voter fraud can take place. And most of us have kind of shoved it aside. And so when I was complaining about the way these things were recounted on the recount, nobody much listened to it. But now maybe people are going to realize that maybe what I'm saying has some validity.
Good morning for the 205th time. That's a long time.
A lot of good mornings.
Yeah.
A lot of mornings.
I'm feeling Badger strong this morning, George. How about you?
All right, yeah. Good morning, anyway.
Jim, how about you?
I'm good.
Yeah?
I'm good.
Wisco strong?
Yeah. Hey.
Well, we've got a little bit of a video to kick things off here this morning, and this is a video of Corey Mason, our esteemed mayor, being interviewed by
Channel 4, I think
Channel
it
4?
was, yeah.
Yeah. About the, what the heck did they call it? The election empowerment
Well, Facebook
move?
money, basically. It's like,
Yeah,
how did
yeah,
you pay
yeah.
for this, Corey?
Yeah.
All this, election.
It's amazing, they were able to get that kind of money in. Over $1 million.
Well, let's watch the video, and then,
Yeah, all right.
because I want to make a couple comments on it.
All right, let's go.
No.
Yeah,
All right.
I've already seen it, but I just
Yeah.
want to give this
Go ahead and
one
let it rip, Jim.
All right.
It's always been sort of a bellwether county in terms of how the state might go, and in this case, because Wisconsin's so close, it might even be an indicator of how the presidency goes. So we've always looked to Racine County to see what the turnout is like and what the participation is like. So Racine County is definitely one to watch on election night.
You have 10 early voting sites set up in the city of Racine. As I look around here at Festival Hall, that's no simple task. Can you talk about the process that went into that and frankly, how you're paying for it? Because there's a lot of staff and a lot of setup.
Yeah, we were very fortunate to apply with 4 other cities for the Center in Tech and Civic Life, who've granted us $1.6 million just here in the city of Racine to pay for the opportunity to be able to do this. This is additional staff, additional poll workers. You can see the PPE and the protective barriers that are in place. The electronic poll books that went into place, none of that would have been possible were it not for the grant. We frankly went through our year's budget just trying to do April's election with the pandemic. So the challenge for all of us is to figure out how to do 2 things that government has to do really well. Number 1, free and fair elections conducted so that everybody can participate in their democracy.
Well, sounds great. Sounds
No,
great.
my thing was that what they were looking at expansion. The only thing I experienced expansion, if any, was Festival Hall. At my voting place, there was no expansion.
Well, there were 10 remote locations.
That's
around the
$1.6
city.
million, and was it all at Festival Hall? And he talks for
you said there were 10 sites.
10 sites.
Where were they though?
Yeah, well,
I think there were
experience of
drop-off
mine.
boxes and different things. You're right.
All right.
Now, 1.6.
1.6 million. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of poll workers.
It's chicken feed, George.
10 extra poll workers. What is that? That's at the most 500,000.
Well,
no, seriously.
No, I totally
What
agree.
is it? A couple thousand for a couple poll workers?
Well, the money that has been pushed out there is, say, it's about $1 million. Now, in this video, he said 1.6 million.
Yeah.
So that extra 600,000, was it given? Was it not given? You get 2 numbers here: $1 million and 1.6.
This treasury,
That's
a
lot of
little
money.
treasury pot, it keeps growing, man.
There's a big discrepancy there.
I hope it's $2 million by next week.
Yeah.
Because we need the money.
He's got this fabulous goose around there someplace.
Yeah,
laying his eggs.
exactly.
Yeah.
And this was the Facebook money. We did the show.
Right.
Yeah, we did the show last week, and we talked about Corey was instrumental in applying, or getting these funds, and then distributing them.
He was the
among
ringleader.
He was the ringleader.
Yeah.
So now,
5 major cities: Kenosha, Madison,
Kenosha?
Milwaukee,
Yep.
Green
Madison,
Bay, and
Milwaukee,
Racine.
Green Bay, and Racine.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're the 5 top cities.
and there's a lot.
And you know what's interesting about that? We have the smallest population of all of them.
yeah, exactly.
Yet we were the center of activity. That
Right.
says something about our mayor. He is
Right.
Mr. Super Democrat.
Yeah.
Powerful guy.
Yeah,
Powerful.
powerful guy.
But one of the things that I
He's
still
managed to
question.
close down a lot of businesses with his super health director.
Oh my gosh. Well, where's the
One of the-
$250,000 Motorola?
Yeah, well, you said there's like Zuckerberg has like a clawback provision.
He's got a
in there.
clawback provision in that contract that says if you don't do what we tell you,
If you don't spend it the way it was designated.
we're going to tell you you're going to have so much for this, so much for this, so much for this, outreach and different things. And, it was all
Is that the
under
way the DNR works?
Yeah, that's how it
No,
works.
no, the DNR doesn't work that
No
way.
clawback with
No,
DNR.
DNR
Okay,
should talk to Zuckerberg because, there's a possibility that they might be able to get that promenade money back. Or at least put a claim in for it.
I was just going to wonder, how serious is the clawback thing? I mean, because
Well,
if
I don't
the
think it's
DNR
very
has one, we know it's not very serious.
No, I don't
But
think
the
the
DNR
DNR
doesn't
has
have
one.
a clawback.
But in that contract with Facebook or Zuckerberg, they have.
Zucker, not Zucker.
Yeah, I know.
You did
Little
it on
slip,
purpose.
Little slip. Anyway, they did. There is a clawback that says, that if this money isn't done,
As specified.
as specified, and you have to remember, it was for the COVID-19. We're going to make it safe. Well, they also had outreach, and they had a lot of other things within that, drop boxes. All that was spelled out in that contract. That's where the lawsuit came in and said, hey, you're electioneering. You're not just putting money out there to make it safe. You're electioneering, and that's why there's the lawsuit now. Now, was Corey Mason electioneering? That's going to be questionable. We're going to find out.
And when you get into private money coming in used like that, that's getting pretty darn risky. I mean, it's like private money coming in for the police department. I mean, if we wanted to use private money, if we wanted to save money on the police department and go private, the protection rackets were marvelous for that. Very efficient.
As opposed to what kind of money?
As opposed to using taxpayers' money to hire police.
Oh, so taxpayer money being spent is incorruptible? I know you.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, but the solution isn't to go with private money necessarily,
No.
because when you see the private money, private police department. Now, the way that typically happens when there's a lack of police is that you get the protection racket. People
Right.
need protection, and
Well, that's
so they
the
they
mafia
have these,
work
the mob
very
does it,
effectively.
and they
Very
do a marvelous job. Yeah.
Or how about
Here's the thing. Here's what it really boils down to is, you could almost have where, Racine election, sponsored by Facebook. I mean, that's basically what
yeah.
you're talking about.
I like that.
I mean, you're now got stadiums who are named by, the
Hey, you're the producer of this show. Can't you get some Zuckerberg money in here?
no, I might have to apply, but nobody ever contacted me.
Well,
But the thing is,
gotta
I
be
mean, that's what
proactive.
you're talking about. You're talking about being sponsored by Facebook, Coca-Cola. What? When does it end?
Yeah.
And how does it work? That's not elections. That's
Oh yeah,
engineering.
particularly in the election thing, right?
Yeah.
Because I was going to say some of our schools, Horlick and Case, are named after very powerful, rich people
Yeah.
here in the city of Racine. And I don't know that they gave any money for the school. I don't know about that part of it. If they did, well, that's a shame. A question. But if they just did it in their honor,
And a
because
lot
they
of
were
times
they were
that's what it
built,
was.
they did a lot for the city
Right.
in their business endeavors, and they weren't.
But George, we're talking about a school. We're not talking about the right to vote and say
When you
we're
get
gonna-
into
we're
that
gonna-
type of thing, yeah, with the voting and the police department and that
I
type
mean,
of stuff.
I don't like the fact that they can name stadiums and they get this money for a stadium that the taxpayers pay for. I don't really like that, but I certainly don't like it in elections where I have to go to a voting booth and all of a sudden I got a sticker on there, buy Tide detergent, in my voting booth.
You know what's weird?
You know?
The only NFL team with a corporate name is the Packers. And they're the only citizen-owned team.
Correct.
This was just kind of a weird twist that came
No,
along.
but I mean, I think that's where a lot of this, when we talked about this Facebook money, I think this is where you get a lot of the lawsuits. Now, they're not going to be settled until probably
Well, the
years
problem
from now.
with those drop boxes, they were in violation of the laws that have been set up in many of the states, particularly what they call the battleground states. There are probably other states, but nobody cares because they always go Republican or they always go Democrat. But in the battleground states, in which there's about 7 of them, they were put out there, and then they were finding out they weren't properly covered. They weren't watched, and they were in violation of the statutes that said that when a person votes, they must submit their absentee ballot or whatever it is to the city clerk,
To a clerk.
and not a box. And that's what
Right. And chain of
was being
custody.
pointed out.
There's a
The
lot of
chain of
things
custody
that are-
was lost. There was a lot of things wrong with it. And then when you come up with all this other stuff going on, where they're finding out there's a whole bunch of fraud going on, now that gets thrown into it. Now they're saying, wait a second, those were in violation.
Yeah.
And that was private money, and that was pushed, and it was only pushed in Democrat cities and in heavy Democrat areas. That's the other problem they saw with them. I mean, the 5 cities that Corey Mason. I don't know about the other cities, but I know in this city, that was the first time that a mayor ran, and he ran as a Democrat, because these are run in the spring, and they're supposed to be nonpartisan, but one of his campaign pieces came out as the only Democrat in the race.
Yeah.
Which wasn't
And
true.
which wasn't true. No, it wasn't even true.
But it doesn't matter. I mean,
But
that's-
nevertheless, he was the only
yeah.
one that announced
But
the
you brought
Democrat
in
thing.
major politics into Racine, which before this, I mean, argue or not, it was pretty much nonpartisan. But now you have a real partisan.
Now we have really gone down the
Yeah.
Democrat hole,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
Yeah.
And not that we haven't been down the Republican hole in the past.
Yeah, a hole is a hole, you know.
Yeah, it wasn't announced. It wasn't announced
But, you
in
know,
time. But there were 5 or 6 aldermen in there. There were very high-ranked aldermen that were all Republicans, and they ran that council. All right. So.
And they were very open about their partisan affiliation.
Oh, were they?
Everybody knew it.
Oh, everybody knew
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they knew
Yeah.
it, but they weren't.
I don't know that they
didn't
ran
have
as
their campaign.
Republicans, yeah.
You know, like there was this last year where there were 3 or 4 aldermen plus. Remember, they all
Oh, yeah,
all
they all
were
ran on
in the
Democratic,
picture
yeah.
taken it with the Democrat Party. So I mean, it was like.
Well, you know, I guess it is what it is. This is where we're at, and you want to change things, we
If we
if we
want
go to the
change-
voting booth. I don't know. Does that work anymore? I don't know.
Mail it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, mail it in. That'll work. Okay.
Let's go to item 2.
All right.
Which, you know, I mean, if you think elections matter, this is one of the reasons they matter, is because the people you vote for are the people that spend your money. And we just went through the taxes here for 2020 as opposed to 2019, and of course, in compliance with the mandate that we were given, nobody's taxes went up, right? Well, mine went up a little bit. Did you? Yours
Oh
didn't-
yeah,
yours
I'll
didn't
tell you
go
what.
up,
A lot of
did they?
people. We've got a lot of contact
Did
with
yours
people.
go up?
Yes, they did.
They did.
Yes, they
Up
did
George?
considerably.
Did yours go up?
I haven't opened them up. I just got my stack of taxes yesterday, and I haven't had a chance to open them. I get a lot.
I can
of
tell you
tax
one
bills.
thing, we
Well,
have
yours
gotten a lot
probably
of
went
contact.
down. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we had a lot of contact.
It's going to be interesting to see, because there was a tax freeze, and what it shows somewhat on the taxes, but not a lot, is the fees that were added to it. I mean,
The taxes you got hit with was about a 10% gain in Unified. Now we're told. Let's go back now to that referendum that was handled in April of this last year of 2020, won by 5 votes. The hot government, which I know you're
allegedly won by 5 votes.
part of, right? That now it's come into play. Now you're looking at your taxes and saying, well, nothing was going to happen. Well, I'll tell you what.
Well, no, they did say it was going to go up like $2 or something crazy like that. You
Well,
know,
I'll
I mean,
tell you
it
what,
was so
I've-
insignificant.
Doc,
People
according
have
to this article in the Journal Times,
Yeah.
they kept their promise that it would be the same tax rate as last year.
Right.
Now, if they were promising it was the same tax rate,
Tax rate.
folks, you got to learn that tax rate doesn't mean squat.
We're only going to charge you 1% of the value of your property.
It's
And then you say, hey, my taxes went up since last year. And you go, well, the value of your property increased.
right.
Well, who decides what your property is
it's a
valued
tax
at?
assessment you have to look out
Exactly.
for. If your assessment goes up 10% and everybody else's assessment stays the same, hypothetically now, it's not
Right.
going to happen. But let's suppose that, then your taxes will go up 10%. But if your assessment goes up to 10% and everybody else's assessment goes up 10%, your tax stays the same.
Right.
But your tax rate will go down.
Yes.
All right,
But here's the
because your
thing.
assessment went up, and that's all that happened here. Is the tax rate stayed the same as last year, but there was a 7.3 increase over of the taxes. That's because everybody's assessment went up, so they could claim that the tax rate stayed the same, but
Well,
which
here's
is
the
true.
bottom line. People are contacting us, in a lot of them.
They're pissed.
They're pissed.
Yeah.
They're pissed at Unified, and they're pissed at the amount of taxes they're paying Unified. And we can go back over to how explain it as much as you can. You're paying a lot for Unified. Unified is they're not open. Their performance has been poor. There's numerous things that you can go to Unified and say, what you're doing isn't working. But yet we're certainly spending an awful lot of money, and we're not talking about just Racine. We're talking about Pleasant. We're talking Caledonia. We're talking the outlying areas, east of 94. It's costing a lot of money for Unified.
And if
are we getting our dollars worth?
And I'm going to repeat myself here, but I somehow, folks, when you see the tax rate, you got to ignore that. Just don't pay any attention to it. You have to look at the tax levy, which is what you're talking about. That's the amount of taxes they're actually collecting. And when that goes up, you got a problem. Ignore the tax rate, because that's just going to divert you into something that doesn't mean anything.
Well, look at your tax bill from last year and your tax bill from this year.
Just look at that. Look at that. That reflects the levy.
$300-400 more a year. I mean, and it's majority of it's Unified.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, let's just jump into. Let's go into hot news. I'm going to put this on the website a little bit about.
Speaking of Unified, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I want people to understand that what hot government's doing. I know, George, you're on this. You're involved in this lawsuit.
Right.
It's in the appeals court now on that referendum that was $1 billion for 30 years. And some of the information that's in this, I don't know if you guys want to go over this a little bit too, but if you want to just kind of hit on it a little bit as far as...
Well, if it's in the appeals court, we ought to get some information pretty soon, right?
Well, we should, but it takes a while.
By maybe what, October?
By October.
Yeah.
This was the one, Piontek, and a lot of information's in this, and I know that hot government wants to start distributing this door to door almost, because they want people to understand, this is where your dollars go to, and when you don't follow the elections, and you don't vote, and you don't participate, this is what you get, $1 billion spent. For what? That's a good question.
Well, and anybody that's following how the election has been going recently in the presidential election, you see now about how voter fraud can take place. And most of us have kind of shoved it aside. And so when I was complaining about the way these things were recounted on the recount, nobody much listened to it. But now maybe people are going to realize that maybe what I'm saying has some validity. I'm just going over it real briefly, more briefly than I have before. But you have 2 stacks of votes, and you find out that, let's say, of 50 in each stack, and you find out that one of them doesn't belong there because they illegally voted. Absentee voted, and they didn't
Well, it
fill it out right.
It didn't have to be illegal. It was flawed for one reason.
Flawed, yeah, because there wasn't a signature, or the voter forgot to sign, or the witness forgot to sign it, something like that. So they say, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to mix them all together, and we're going to take out one of the votes. All right, and they pull out a yes vote. So if there was 50 and 50, there should now be 49 yes votes and 50 no votes, right?
Yeah.
There was 50 and 50, pull out one yes vote, 49 yes votes, and 50 no votes. Well, they can't just do that. They have to count them. So when they recounted them and put it into 2 stacks, guess what? There was still 50 yes vote and 1 less no vote.
Sounds like magic.
Now, how do you, huh?
Well,
and that's what I feel is. There was like 19 of those.
Is you want to look at the ballots.
We
and
want to
just
look at the
physically
ballots,
count the damn
and
thing.
just see it. But
and
that's
a limited number of precincts too.
Yeah, it was only like.
who was the judge there? Who was the judge that said you couldn't look at the votes?
Yeah, Piontek, and that's what if you've been following this thing in this presidential and these elector thing. What were they complaining about? We couldn't see the votes. We couldn't watch them count. We didn't know if
so. We
or not.
Actually, you and a couple others involved in this were the actual.
We were the plaintiffs. I was with Hot Government. Jim Sewell was with the Libertarian Party, and Dennis Monte was with the Racine Taxpayers Association. So it's 3 different organizations that were challenging it.
Okay, I want to make a pitch here, though. A lot of times, and I don't make many pitches for money because I know that a lot of this money that's been paid from attorneys is out of individual pockets. I know we've all contributed, and there's a lot of other people that contributed. But at this time, now you understand how some of this voting can be fraudulent or at least questionable, and it costs money. It's in the appeals court. We're going to leave the address on here where you can send some money to Hot Government. You can go on the website, hotgovernment.com. You can make a donation there. You can mail it in. There's a P.O. box. I'll put it up in front of the screen here. And, we'd really like to see some folks understand exactly what's happening. I think now it's national news. Well, it's happening here in Racine, and we're talking about $1 billion, and now your tax bill reflects
It's
that.
reflecting
Yeah.
that. That's
Yeah.
right.
So-
That is the part that's the levy. In other words, that's $1 billion extra, $30 million a year for, or $33 million a year for 30 years. That is the levy. That's the thing you have to watch. If you get wound up in this tax rate stuff, you're gonna say, oh, but their tax rate stayed the same. Say, can't you look at the levy? And it went up $1 billion, not this year, but over the 30-year period, it went up $1 billion. The levy, that much additional taxes they are actually collecting.
Yeah.
And
Well,
now they're paying it.
And for some people, this is like hundreds of dollars on their annual
No,
tax
it
bill.
could be $200-300
Okay.
a year for
So
the next
if
30
they
years.
if they were to donate 10, 20, 25, $100, they'd
Great.
actually be saving money if
Yeah.
this
And here's the other
prevails.
thing, and I want to bring up one of the things. Now, we went through, and Corey just talked about on that video about how, they made it safe for the voting and how they went out and expanded the areas. But here it is. You can't pay your taxes down at City Hall because it's locked up. So you can for voting, we're going to spend all kinds of money, and we're going to make sure everything's done, and it's a huge operation that we're going to do. And you got 1.6 million, which I find hard to believe. But let's go over to City Hall, where you can come in. A lot of people come in. They want to get their taxes paid. They want to get it stamped. They want that. This is what they do. Maybe they're running tight on money, and they need that last paycheck to make that tax payment. And they got to run in there. Now they got to go all the hurry up and rush. All they had to do was go down to City Hall and maybe drop it in, or go to get a clerk to stamp it. They can't open that. They can do all the money over here on tax on voting, but they can't accommodate the
Can't
citizens.
leave people open so they can pay the
So
bill. at least.
I mean, I find it.
I think we should call Mark Zuckerberg and
See if they'll do
see if we can.
tax
see if we can
payments
get him-
sponsored by.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, the thing
I
is,
just find that,
the thing
you
is,
know.
these people are getting paid for having City Hall open and collecting taxes.
Yeah.
They're
Right.
they're all getting paid for that, even though they're not doing either of those things. They're not opening City Hall.
I
and they're
just
not
find
collecting taxes.
we've strayed so far from a representative government, especially in Racine. I mean, it's getting to the point now where, and I've called Corey Mason a Marxist before, and I truly.
Well, the
believe
thing
he
that
is.
bugs me is not only are we supposed to pay taxes, and they won't even put out the expenditure and the effort to collect them properly. But on the other end of things, they're closing businesses.
Yeah.
Corey Mason has his gunwoman, Dottie Bowersox, closing up businesses. And there's no rational reason for it. There's a kind of a superficial one in that the number of people getting the coronavirus is going up in the county, but they can't label it and say, well, it's because they're going to bars or they're going on shopping or they're doing shopping for clothing. They can't pinpoint it on anything. So we're just going to close down a bunch of business
Right.
because it shows that we're doing something. But we're only going to close the businesses that are non-essential. Now, I've just heard really great.
Wait a minute. That's why City Hall is closed.
So,
You may have a point there.
the point is, when a government gets so big that they can start labeling you as non-essential, then it's too big. There is, as far as I'm concerned, there is no non-essential business. If it was a non-essential business, it probably wouldn't exist. Everybody is out there when they're performing that. They're performing that somebody wants that service. Now, the thing is that now these are your taxpayers. So we're slamming the door, particularly on small businesses. If you're big and got lots of money, you're a big box store, they call them.
Yeah.
You're open. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
COVID
Very
doesn't
essential.
happen over there.
Right.
Put a couple masks on and you're fine. But boy, if it's a small business and there are going to be 6 people coming in that store at the same time, no, that's a hazard. Close it down. So the thing is, it's really, really gotten crazy, and people, are finally waking up to this. I'm finally hearing something that we talked about months ago, and that is when the is using all this science and stuff, to tell you how you're supposed to lead your life. They have the authority to let you know about it, but it's your decision on how you're going to use it, and it's your decision to decide whether you are going to open up your store and your customers decide whether they want to go to your store. That's a private decision. It's not the government's decision to do that. We said that a long time ago, but I'm hearing more and more of that as people are feeling the bite from having over-aggressive government like Corey Mason and Dottie Bowersox closing businesses, causing them to lose a lot of money, and maybe even shuttering a business permanently where they can't open up, can't feed their family, can't put food on the table, can't keep a roof over their head, and they're doing it anyway. And that's
I want to do a
about
public
that.
service announcement here, and it's something that you and I have discussed. And Jim, I'm sure you're cognizant of it too, but George and I have talked about it specifically. The last thing I saw, and I just saw it today, 80% of the people who have had the COVID-19, who have contracted the coronavirus infection and had a bad result from it, 80% of them are vitamin D deficient. And we've talked about before, make sure you're getting enough
Yeah,
vitamin
health,
D.
that's right.
So please,
You can throw in a little zinc too, and that's
yeah,
that's a lot
zinc
of
is
it.
important as well too.
Yeah.
And if you're taking vitamin C, which is another thing that's good for your immune system, take that and the zinc separately, because the zinc will deplete the value of the C.
Okay,
So,
yeah, no.
I just wanted to throw that in
it's
there.
been out there.
Any little thing, man.
We cover all bases.
It,
Yeah, we
well,
do.
it's been seen for a long time. I mean, the chance of a average individual. Let's take somebody in high school. We're talking middle age type of thing. High school, college, young adult. The chance of them dying from COVID, actually dying from it, is about the same risk they're taking as going out in a car and driving, dying in an automobile accident. For little kids, we're talking about under 5, the chances of them contracting it and dying from it is about the same as getting hit by lightning. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure they even got one in the United States that has died from it. But the point is that it's very, very minimal, the chance of being death. Yet we're closing schools, closing businesses, doing all these things.
Well, the statistics are evolving. I mean, we're seeing more and more all the time. We're getting a better understanding of it, but take vitamin D.
Yeah,
Right.
that's true.
Right.
If you just lead a healthy lifestyle, instead of wearing a mask for a little while, lead a healthy lifestyle for a little while.
Why not do both?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, I think that's enough for today. In fact, we tape these on Saturdays. I guess you know that. And there's a Packer game coming up. So, in the interest of that, go Pack Go. Thanks for being here, and we'll be back next week. Please come and join us.